families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's segment of Families Divided TV. In this week's segment, Dr. Colleen Murray sits down with Dr. Sue Cornbluth, and she will be discussing with us the mindset of an alienated parent. This is part one of a part two series. Also, we'll have a segment with Dr. Amy Baker on how to reach out to your adult alienated child. And Dr. Mary Alvarez will be speaking with you as one of our presenters in our upcoming international virtual conference, September 9th through the 11th. And she's going to be discussing with you what she'll be sharing at that conference. I do hope you can join us. We've got many fun things planned, great speakers that will be presenting some much needed information for us. So please join us. These segments will be coming to you right after these messages.
At Victor's Crown, our focus is on you, our clients. When you arrive, our goal is that you will feel at home, from our welcoming atmosphere to our serene surroundings. Everything we do at Victor's Crown is done with our clients in mind. We have comfortable seating areas for both adults and children. A large screen TV with surround sound where clients can be occupied with wholesome entertainment while they wait. We offer complimentary refreshments such as coffee, tea, water, and snacks. Due to the present COVID pandemic, our in-person appointments are restricted to selected cases, and those are held in our luxurious outdoor open-air meeting space that we affectionately refer to as the COVID Cabana, which was built specifically for our clients to offer them the most comfortable and relaxing outdoor space available. All our other clients are offered secured web-based telemed sessions where they can connect with us from anywhere in the world.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Mary Alvarez. I am a psychologist in Texas. I practice out of the Austin and Houston areas, and I have been a former custody evaluator. And as such, I was involved with parental alienation in high conflict families in which parental alienation was being used as a tool or a mechanism to win custody, change custody, and things of that nature. So I have been involved with the very worst of parental alienation situations and have seen firsthand the devastating effects on children, on families, and especially on the target parent, the parent for whom the alienation is targeted at that person and they struggle tremendously. And so I am excited to present in Durham this fall a presentation concerning self-care, because it's often overlooked for the target parent. All of their energy, all of their resources are going towards the legal case and towards fighting against allegations of parental alienation or abuse is more likely. So self-care comes into the equation because parents, target parents, are already stressed. And if they're not taking care of themselves, it's harder to be involved in a legal case. It's harder to promote a defense against allegations of abuse and allegations as to why you're not the fit parent and why you need to be marginalized in the child's life. And so I will take everybody through self-care and some things that they can do on a regular daily basis that won't require equipment, it won't require great amounts of time, but it will make a tremendous difference in their ability to tolerate stress, reduce anxiety, and manage depression, which is another very common factor in target parents. It's very distressing to be accused of many false things. And it's very distressing to watch a relationship with your child deteriorate and sometimes disappear altogether. And so self-care will be my topic, and I'm looking forward to presenting and getting to interact with many, many parents and professionals. Thank you.
Amy Baker here with some tips about reaching out to an adult alienated child. So the first thing is you should be reaching out to an adult alienated child. There might be an exception or two, but in general, it's important to keep reaching out, letting your child know that you're available, you're safe, you're loving, you want a relationship, you want to work on things, you want things to be better. Don't assume that just because you sent a bunch of emails a while ago that your child knows that. It might be obvious to you, but it may not be obvious to your child. So you want to keep reaching out, never give up on that relationship. When you reach out, you want to make sure that you're not maudlin, self-serving, manipulative in any way. So you can't say like, I weep for my lost child, or I haven't smiled since the last time I saw you. Even if it sadly might be true, you need to not try to induce your child to feel guilty. The next thing is don't try to tell your child your side of the story, or don't even say, well, if you knew my side of the story, you wouldn't be mad at me. It just doesn't really help, because it's basically saying to the child, everything you think and feel is wrong. You need to see things from my point of view. There may be a time for that later, but when your child is at this point completely not receptive and you're reaching out sort of cold, you don't want to give the message, I'm right and you're wrong. I also suggest refraining from sending links to alienation websites or sending books, unless your child says, hey, there's that thing you talked about, I'd like to learn more about it. Otherwise, don't impose your perspective on what happened to the child. When you do reach out, which you should be doing on a regular basis, you can cycle through a variety of communication strategies. So the first is a general just, hey, I love you, miss you, I'd love to work things out kind of email or message. You can also do a relevant photograph. Like if your child loves puppies and you're walking down the street and you see an adorable puppy, snap a picture and send it to your child and say, I thought of you, right? Or if you saw the new Star Wars movie and that's something you used to do with your child, you could say, hey, did you see the new blah, blah movie? You can also do general invitational communication, like, hey, I'd love to come visit you sometime. How about if we get together and take a walk sometime? So you're not like pinning the child down, but it's just generally like, hey, I'd love to get together. You could also do specific invitations. How about, I come by this Sunday and we take a walk. So you just want to keep cycling through a variety of messages. Even if you're not getting any response back, I do know cases where the kid says later, hey, all those messages you sent, well, I was actually reading them. So you need to have it's a bit of a leap of faith that you're doing something that will have a good impact even if you are not immediately seeing it. I think of it sort of as watering a flower. When you plant the seed and you just keep watering the earth and you don't see anything, it's a leap of faith, and then sort of magically, hopefully something good will happen. If you continue to not get any positive response from your child, you can send something slightly more provocative, like, hey, you must be mad at me, or I'm guessing that you're really hurt and angry with me, and see if that doesn't pull for something from the child. All right, I hope these tips have been helpful.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Families Divided. Today, my guest will be Dr. Sue Cornbluth, and we will be discussing the alienated parent's mindset. Hello, Sue. It is such a joy for you to join us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Good. So I want to kind of jump into this, but before we do, I wanted to kind of explore with you, when we're talking about the alienated parent's mindset, what should people, while we are getting ready to have this conversation, where should they conceptually be focused right now? What should they be thinking about?
Well, that's a great question. I think one of the things that is important to focus on right now is having an open mind about what we are going to discuss today. Many alienated parents that are watching this right now, as you know, as well as I do, are living in complete fear and panic and paranoia every single day of their lives, wondering what is going to happen next. So today I ask that everybody that is watching this has an open mind to the concepts that we're going to explore today, because we are here to help.
Great. Thank you for that. Because my next question is, what can the alienated parent do to deal with the ambiguous feelings of loss that go along with the alienation?
Well, let's start with defining what ambiguous loss is. I'm not sure that everybody that is watching this really knows what that is. When we have an ambiguous loss, it's a loss that is unresolved. Mm-hmm. When you lose someone to death, for instance, it's done, it's over. They're not coming back physically into your life. They can remain in your life in a spiritual way. But when you're experiencing an ambiguous loss, it's that the person is still physically alive. They are psychologically connected to you, but you physically cannot get to them. And that is what many alienated or targeted parents are experiencing on a daily basis. And so that is very difficult, because you're always living in such high anxiety and hope, of course. We don't ever want to let go of hope that this can be fixed, that you can become reconnected with your lost loved one that you are separated from.
Yeah, so it sounds like ambiguous loss is when you can't really be grounded in what happens next. So you can't really process it. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and also you can't process it as a final loss, because it's not a final loss. I've had many cases where a parent hasn't spoken to their child for 13, 10, 7 years. They've never given up. And then one day out of the blue, they get a text message from their child. So that ambiguous loss is then resolved a little bit within that instance. So that's why we always say, don't ever give up hope and keep trying at all costs, because you never know when the child, an adult child as well, is going to be able to make that advance towards you.
Right. So to be compassionate with oneself.
Yes.
And how does this being compassionate with oneself, this self-compassion, change the whole dynamic of the alienation? How can that happen?
Thank you for asking me that, because I think that we are one of the practices that really focuses on how much self-compassion and compassion can cure the conflicts that are going on within these families. You cannot solve conflict with conflict. It just doesn't work. But what you can do is solve conflict with compassion. However, it is critically important that we have found that if you are not able to give yourself that self-compassion or that self-love, or really work on yourself in terms of the feelings, the frustration, the anger, the ups and downs of what you are feeling in order to get closer to your children, then things most likely will not take a positive turn. It is that self-work of going inside and looking at all the pain that you have experienced first before you are able to give your child the compassion that is needed to turn around these volatile situations.
So what I hear you saying is that if a parent finds themselves in this situation, they need to find a guide through this, a coach or a therapist, and really do the inner work, kind of like what we hear on the airplane, right? Put your mask on first before you help your child, which seems counterintuitive as a parent, but what I hear you saying is that's really important, that they be grounded and that they have all of the internal conflict resolved for themselves so that they can extend that empathy and compassion with their child.
Yes, I mean, it's exactly what I'm saying. It's a great analogy for this. Look, this is a very difficult and emotional roller coaster and ride to go through. There's not much worse in life than not being able to be with your child or children, and that they're still out in the world, and you can't get to them. I mean, it's really, really devastating. It's grueling emotionally. And what we found is that you've got to go inside and do this inner work to have that chance and a better opportunity to reconnect with your children. Through the work that we've done, we do coaching with alienated parents, and we have found that every single parent that has done that self-compassion work, worked on forgiveness, worked on letting go of the defensiveness that comes with this, and really has gone in and done this internal work, has reconnected with their children in some capacity. Now, I'm not saying it's the same way that it was before, but there is some kind of connection that does occur if you do this inner work. I didn't always practice this way, but as I went along and have been practicing for a long time now, that was the key factor that changed this for parents who want to reunite with their children. There's not one parent watching this that doesn't want that to happen, but you have to do that inner work. Those feelings of anger and resentment and fear and panic are blocking you from being able to be as present as possible to reconnect with your children.
Yeah. And I also find in my practice that the parent who's alienated struggles so much with embarrassment and shame.
Yes.
And how do you, in your practice, how do you help them deal with the embarrassment and shame that goes with this?
Yeah, that's another great question. I'm really glad that you brought that up. The way that we deal with this is really bringing it to the surface and exploring it verbally between ourselves and the alienated parent. And we put it into a reality that, look, what happened here to you has happened to millions of parents around the world, and that there really is nothing to be embarrassed about, although we do understand the embarrassment of talking to others about this, or the questions or the fear that you're going to be judged based on these circumstances, which many of these circumstances were out of the parents' control. So we try to help them normalize it. unfortunately, today, right, this is normalized, and which is horrible, but it is, and it's happening to so many people all over the world. But the one thing that helps with that, and this is where it is connected to shame and embarrassment are connected to each other, is that we work in a model where we talk to our clients about you did the best you could with what you had at the time. And that is nothing to have shame about, because we all, when we're in panic or we're in fear or we don't know what to do, and your children being ripped away from you where you cannot get to them and you feel powerless, is trauma. And what goes along with trauma is shame. So we focus on helping these individuals to see that you did the best you could at the time. And now, though, you can grow from this experience and learn to show up differently.
Sure. So, so helping them to reframe it, if you will,
Yes.
so that now that they're out of the trauma, they can go back and they can reconceptualize what was really happening, the parts that they didn't fully process while they were in the trauma.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you know this from your own practice as well. You and I have had conversations before that when you are in your own trauma, it's with anybody, and this is trauma, you are not as aware emotionally how you are reacting or how you are presenting, because you're living with such heightened anxiety.
Right. So when you work with your clients, can you kind of talk us through, like, what's the strategic plan, if you will, through it? Like, where do they start and how do they know where they're going to end up?
Yeah, so we really have a hands-on approach where we work with our clients, not just one time a week, but we are involved in the whole process from start to finish. We have 45-minute sessions where we go into the history of what has happened, and understand how to conceptualize a strategic plan of action to take place. And let me describe that. One, the first step, of course, is, as I said before, is we take them through 6 sessions of compassion. It's called the Compassion Academy, and it's a requirement because in those 6 sessions, as I talked about in the beginning, you're focusing on yourself first. If you're not good to yourself, you cannot be good to anyone else, and you need to work through those feelings. Then what we do is we put a plan together to help you learn how to communicate differently with your child or your ex or whomever it is to open up the door for some kind of civil connection. Now, many people watching this will say, Dr. C, that sounds crazy. I don't want to have a civil connection with my ex or anything like that. But I'm here to tell you that that is one of the ways to get closer to your children. You have to figure out where the power dynamics are and who's involved in this and who to approach to move this ahead. If your child is more connected to the other parent, then they're aligned with that parent more, whether or not that parent is brainwashing them or not. They are aligned with them. And then the child's truth, even the adult child's truth, is based on the concepts of that parent who influenced them. So we try to explain that your child's truth is now their truth based on what they've experienced over the last years, not what happened before they were with you. And so we teach parents how to reach out to their children in a way that the children can hear them. One of the things that is critically important in understanding is that to reconnect with your children, whether they're 18, 25, 35, 45, is that you're going to have to meet them on their terms where they are now. to try to get back into their lives.
Sure. So it sounds like you kind of take them on their own life journey from where they started to the problem or where the conflict started, and then that's to build maybe some idea of why they're responding the way they are, why they're reacting, what type of patterns did they fall into, during the marriage, and how are they replaying those out now, possibly.
Yes.
And then healing from that, equipping them with some skills and maybe some parent management techniques, depending on their child's age, and then kind of moving them into, let's put this into practical practice now with the child, or in the anticipation that you will be with the child.
Correct. And you know what? A lot of this is believing in the process, that making this change and showing up differently for your child. They're not the same person that you once knew. Even though this has been going on and it's been horrible, they have been maturing and growing and changing. And that's a very difficult thing to accept, right? I mean, oftentimes it feels like you're meeting a stranger again. And that is the reality of this. And you do need to be prepared in order to know what it is going to be like. Otherwise, you have these expectations or assumptions of how things are going to be. And we know from research that when we have expectations that are not met, we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. Instead of living in the present, doing what is necessary and seeing what is coming and allowing it to come. But what we believe is you can be proactive in moving this forward if you can really change your mindset. I mean, it just reminds me of something that happened on Friday with one of my clients that I've been working with for 3 years. Yep, I said 3 years, because let's remember, right? You may have not talked to your child in 5 to 6 years, so the change isn't going to happen overnight either. And we worked for 3 years together, sending her son nothing but compassionate messages. And all of a sudden on Friday, I was driving in my car and she sent me a text message and she said, "Dr. Sue, you're not going to believe this. Read this." And it said, "Hi, Ma. I know it's been a long time and I just wanted to wish you a happy weekend."
How wonderful. How rewarding and how satisfying she must have felt for all the effort that she put in.
Next week on Families Divided TV, Dr. Sue Cornbluth will have part 2 of her interview with Dr. Colleen Murray.